Ralph, let's pick up where we were leaving off there. I'm interested. Obviously, I'm here in Escondido, California. For those living around the nation, we have a large Hispanic population in our elementary schools. And I know there's different philosophies about putting them in ESL classes, English as second language classes, and there's also the idea of immersion. What's your take on all of that?
Well, it leads right into the reason why we need charter schools. My take on it is what a teacher and a staff believes in, and if the parent believes in that, they get the students to believe in that, they're the most successful. So that's the part, in terms of our governance model, I wanted to tap into what that staff believed in, because we certainly know that the best way to educate a child is through the skill and knowledge of that classroom teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So anything out of that is just fluff. But when you work on the skill and knowledge of that teacher, the staff development, and improving their classroom resources, and then getting them to collaborate with other teachers, that's the winning combination. So when they can sell their product to parents going, this is what we're about, and if you want to join us, come down to our school.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just create the systems of communication between parents and staff to say, talk this out. So we certainly know, regardless of the methodology, when that parent and staff believes in something, that gives us our best results.
Gotcha. And then in your schools, when you had those great results, was it a combination, or what was the overall belief that turned that around? Was the immersion, or was it English as second language classes and things like that? What did you attribute to success besides obviously the skill and knowledge of your teachers and giving them what they believed in? What was it that they believed in?
We had both. The school went over 900. The immersion.
Uh-huh.
That's the parents, when they wanted to start the school, which they wanted, and the staff bought into it, and the principal really believed in it, so they just took off. And then at the other school, which is the regular school, so now you have things like the diversity of staff opinion. And it took them several years to finally get their heads around, this is where we're going. So usually there'd be a question from what we call the regular school. Kids are leaving us to go to a charter school, or what we call our schools of choice, and they expected some sympathy, and I wouldn't give them any. I'd say the question you need to ask yourself is find out why they're leaving you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the real crux in education.
Compete.
Exactly, and I had a principal who did that, and he asked his staff, what is this school offering that we're not? And they went after it. And they were, years ago, our first school to go over 800.
Mm-hmm.
And as a district, as we wrapped up, for our demographics, we were number one in the state of California, both in English language arts and math. So I was very proud of the work they had done.
Well, you should be. Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. We were quite proud of that.
Well, I hear a little bit, and I don't know how true. I've read a little bit of research on how long we keep students in some of the schools on ESL classes because the district gets extra funding from the federal government for them, and sometimes rather than making sure that they're ready to move on into the mainstream or not have to take those classes, sometimes they keep them in there longer than they have to, which I've heard feedback from different people say they're doing a disservice because those kids could start in elementary school and end up being, I don't know if this is true or not, but actually be in ESL classes all the way through their high school years. I don't know how much of that goes on, but I have read some research where some district that actually does happen, where students never are get out of those classes. Have you experienced that or seen that?
Well, no, I haven't seen that, nor would I ever allow it as a superintendent or as a CEO. So one thing parents can look for, they can go into school and ask them for what we call a dashboard or their scorecard.
Mm-hmm.
What data are the schools looking for that the board's tracking? A board should once a month have a set of data points that they're looking at to see how their kids are achieving, how their attendance is at school. But one of the other things which is really key for parents, there's Dr. Yuri Traceman. He's from the Dana Center and University of Texas. He said the highest achieving high school in America focus on a student's life after high school.
Mm-hmm.
The average achieving high schools focus on graduation.
Hmm.
So
That's
you tie that up with Bob Marzano, another researcher, who goes, the number one strategy to motivate a student is self-selected long-term projects. Now you tie the two together and you think the greatest long-term project of a student is their life after high school.
mhm.
We have to get them future-focused. And once we get them to really buy into what their future is going to be, school tends to make more sense for them. And that's for all kids at all socioeconomic levels and all academic levels. But that's usually the missing piece. We start to teach these independent subjects unrelated to a child's life. That's a big mistake.
That's a good point. No, very much so. Again, like I said, I'm not, you and I both know that the charter school movement is not perfect. But the great thing about it is if they're not doing a good job, they can go out of business. Whereas a regular public school, in all honesty, that is putting out a poor product, they stay in business. In fact, sometimes they get extra money because of the poor job that they're doing. So what's your take on the bureaucracy? If you're the education guru here in California, what would you do?
Well, we've certainly presented our model at the state level and the federal level, and both times the issue was politics keeps it from happening. So here's about as simple as way we can go. When I first started, we call it site-based merit pay. It doesn't mean individual teacher merit pay, but you set an objective. So let's say you want your schools to get to an 800 API. You go, if you get to an 800 API, your school will earn X amount of dollars per student for your budget. And so whatever the metric is or your dashboard data, if you have monthly tests, if you have that, you want your high school students to select a career or a focus, whether it's college, the military, or vocation, you track how many students have done that. And then that's how you're budgeted for your school site. So it forces staff to work collaboratively, because if they don't, they won't get a budget. So with that, the schools then, our schools have to make their cuts. If they didn't have the budget, they had to decide what programs or practices or teachers am I going to have to transfer out of there so they can meet budget.
I see.
And so when the kids show up, we give them a base amount of money. So they get a certain amount so that parents would sometimes come in and say, well, at the poor schools, they're going to be penalized. That's not true. Because the base amount of money we gave our schools was more than any other school in the county. So the base was very solid.
So they had the money to do the things they were in business to do.
Exactly. But to get the icing on the cake and to do more, they had to produce. And so that was a winning formula. But the bureaucracy at the state level is you have these different programs, whether it's bilingual education, special education, any little program or practice that has some money to it. Those people die hard. They don't want to give up their power.
Exactly.
And yet, I go back to when we empower our schools, each individual school, to make decisions. There's a guy named Robert Bales. Many years ago, he called it transaction cost. When an individual makes a decision, if they succeed or fail, they learn. But when you start putting more people in that decision and you get more people outside of the school, then what the school does is they tend to shut down and say, just let the district or the board tell us what to do, and we'll shut the door and do whatever we want to do. So we have to increase their skill and knowledge in terms of when they make a decision and they fail and they don't get money, I guarantee you they learn real quick. And the things as a district we had to teach our staff was conflict resolution. How do you communicate with each other? We had to create our group rules and abide by them. Say you will behave professionally toward one another, and we all had to do that in the district.
That's called team, getting together as a team and doing the right thing for the right reasons. All that coaching background, and I can relate to it because that's my background also, is that coaching background and what it's all about.
You bet. And there's a reason why more coaches become administrators. I read a little thing that said, because coaches tend to do with large groups, whether it's crowd control, large groups of athletes, and they have to be able to delegate. So they learn all those administrative skills through their coaching.
Yeah, no, I highly agree with that. We got about 15 seconds. Is there anything else you would want to leave us with here? And again, I appreciate you taking time to, being the retired person that you are, to take time out of your day and meet with us. I'd like to do it again because you have a lot of insights, a lot of good things I think are good for our audience to hear. So I want to thank you for that. And again, you're listening to Charter School Radio on WS Radio, the worldwide leader in Internet talk, and that was our guest, Dr. Ralph Baker. We'll have him back again because I enjoyed what he had to say, and we'll be right back with our second half-hour guest, Dr. Clay Dubey from USC, and it'll be an interesting topic also, so stay with us.